So welcome everybody to today's webinar, Admissions and the Arts. My name is Derek Terrell and I'm the Director of Member Engagement with the Coalition for College. We are using Zoom webinar today and have the Q&A function enabled. So feel free to ask your questions throughout the presentation and we'll try to address them during the Q&A portion at the end. If you are considering pursuing a degree in the arts, whether it be fine arts, performing arts, music, or otherwise, your application process may include an opportunity to audition or share your work. Today, you're going to hear from Cornell College, Maryland Institute College of Art, New England Conservatory of Music, the University of Arizona, and Yale University, and they will be sharing a bit more on the topic of admissions and the arts. Before we get started, let me share a little bit of information about the Coalition for College and the work that we do. So the Coalition, we are more than 150 colleges and universities with a proven commitment to access, affordability, and student success. Together, we provide a set of tools called My Coalition that helps students learn about, prepare for, and apply to college. So we believe that Coalition schools are smart college choices because of the commitment that they all share, as Coalition schools are dedicated to graduating students on time with low or no debt. And these include students who have been historically excluded and underrepresented in higher education. Members of the Coalition provide a variety of smart college choices for students to explore and apply to with a wide range of student body sizes and levels of selectivity. And still collectively, Coalition schools outperform the national averages by about 17% when it comes to retention and graduation rates, which are very important factors to consider when thinking about the college that you want to attend and how much time and money to invest in your education. So when building your college list, a great place to start is by exploring the over 150 Coalition schools. And then speaking of building a college list, My Coalition provides the college list and a collaboration space, which is an easy way for students to discover these smart college choices and collaborate with a mentor for feedback. You can also collaborate on other documents that you store in your virtual locker, which is an unlimited storage space, a perfect place to keep pictures or PDFs of the design and artwork that you have, videos or audio files of dances, music performances, or even Word files with descriptions of all your work. So these are all great things that you could share with the admissions offices later when you're applying for college. And then, as I mentioned, Coalition schools work together to provide students with the free tools and access to this is done by creating a free account at mycoalition.org. You can also follow us on Instagram to bring insight and inspiration related to all things college right to your feed. If you have any questions following this, please feel free to reach out to us via our info box at info@coalitionforcollege.org. So we received a lot of questions from you students when you registered for this event, and these are just some of the topics that we'll be addressing. But first, let's meet our presenters who are going to share a bit more about pursuing a degree in the arts in college and their insights and tips for the admissions process. And with that, I'm going to ask each one of them to introduce themselves before we jump into our Q&A portion of the day, starting with Evelyn.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Evelyn Rush. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the visual and performing arts recruiter at Cornell College. And not to be confused with Cornell University, we are a small liberal arts college in Iowa, and we are known for our one course at a time academic schedule.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amelia Duno. I am an admissions counselor at the Maryland Institute College of Art. I use she, her pronouns, and I work primarily with our students who are local to Maryland, but I also talk to students from all over, so I'm excited to meet you all soon.
Hey everybody, my name is Zach Schwartz. I use he, him, his pronouns. I am the Assistant Director of Admissions and Financial Aid at the New England Conservatory of Music here in Boston, Massachusetts. I'm really interested to talk to you all specifically about how a very intensive independent music conservatory route of study, how that could look and what it means for admissions, enrollment, financial aid, and your careers. Glad to have you with us.
Hi, everybody. My name is Max Jackson. I'm with the University of Arizona College of Fine Arts. I'm the Senior Coordinator for Admission, Recruitment, and Enrollment for the college. And I have been at the University of Arizona for about 16 years now. I'm excited to talk to you about what it takes to get a traditional college degree within a college like the College of Fine Arts that's a small conservatory style program at a major university. So thank you for being with us today.
And hi, everyone. I'm Jeremiah Quinlan. I'm the Dean of Undergraduate Admissions and Financial Aid at Yale University, and I am happy to be here representing a liberal arts college embedded inside a larger research university with 4 graduate schools in the arts, art, architecture, music, and theater, and strong connections at the undergraduate level to those 4 fine professional schools and undergraduate programs that live inside the liberal arts college, but where students can also study at any of the graduate and professional schools for their undergraduate degree.
All right. Thanks so much for the introductions. And we are going to go ahead and hop right into some of the questions that were submitted beforehand. So the first question I'm actually going to address and ask Evelyn. Evelyn, can you explain to us the difference between art history and studio art and give us insight on studying arts at a liberal arts college?
Absolutely. So it's going to be a little bit different at a liberal arts college than it's going to be at, say, an art and design school or at a university. And you're just going to want to ask those questions about the colleges or universities you're interested in when you are interested in applying. But at Cornell and at a liberal arts institute, what that means is that you are actually going to be studying more courses in either studio art or art history, right? So part of a liberal arts education is that you will still be taking a certain number of courses related to the humanities, sciences, and social sciences, but the majority of a greater weight will be put on courses say you're going to study art history, you'll take a greater number of courses or course credits in art history. Now, you're definitely still going to do some studio art courses, but it will just be more heavily weighted either way. So if you're interested in studio art, then you're going to take more weighted courses in studio art. Now, at Cornell, and I think at a lot of other liberal arts colleges, it's also true that what you're actually building towards when you become a senior is some kind of capstone project. And that is true also at Cornell. So at Cornell, what we try to do is prepare students for what's beyond college, right? So for our students who are interested in art history and want to pursue a degree in art history, what we do is we have them create an original thesis. They do a whole year, their senior year, they come up with an original thesis about art history that they're interested in. They get to choose that, they get to research it, and then they actually get to defend it before they leave, which is a really great preparation for grad school. And then for studio art, and this is kind of, this is, I think, true of most liberal arts colleges, is that you get the chance to put together a portfolio. Here at Cornell, what you get to do is that you actually get to have a whole exhibit gallery by yourself. You get to fill that gallery with work, and you get your own studio to work in your senior year all to yourself. You get to lock it at night. You get to have full access to it. And so for studio art, you also get that opportunity to create a whole gallery of work before you move on from college, whether that is to grad school, if you're doing museum work, or just pursuing, being an artist out in the world. So yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Evelyn. The next question I'm going to throw over to Amelia. So there are a lot of questions submitted around the contemporary art, such as graphic design, illustration, and animation. Can you tell us a little bit more about those and what those entail?
Yeah, absolutely. I really love that it was framed in this way because it's really interesting. There's kind of this dichotomy sometimes that's set up between the digital and media arts and the fine arts. And I think that can definitely be broken down in a lot of ways, but something really interesting about the programs of study that you guys mentioned here, graphic design, illustration, animation, in particular, these are really industry focused. So that's a really important part of that process, is not only developing your own personal voice as an artist and designer and learning what your own process for research and methodology would be as, a creative, but also understanding that whenever you're involved in these fields, that means real budgets, real timelines, real clients that you're going to be working alongside. So it's not just your personal voice, your creative voice. It's really understanding what it means to be within a professional field. At MICA, we have all of our professors are active professionals with, creative practices themselves. So a lot of that functions through relationships with your professors and the networks that they have. And a lot of that's also going to happen through internships. That's a big, big thing. And probably, I think at all colleges, really getting that industry, your step into the industry ahead of time is a really, really great look into what it actually is what it's going to be like whenever you are involved in that field. So that would be the main thing that I would really focus on, is like looking at the difference between a fine art field that really focuses on your own creative practice and your own voice and concept versus something that is a little bit more client based and like industry based.
Awesome. Thank you. The next question I'm going to direct to Zach. So we know that students pursuing music can choose from a wide range of options within music. Will you tell us a little bit about the difference, or just about music theory, composition, and then performance, especially at your institution?
Definitely. And actually, I'm going to zoom it out to be a little bit less about NEC with that question. So one of the things to consider is, if you are thinking about studying music, there are really two programs, 2 degrees that you would pursue as an undergrad. You would either pursue what we have, which is a Bachelor of Music. So this is a very professional conservatory program. So what that means is that there are about 120 significant music programs in the United States. And these are found either at private independent schools like NEC, or at a conservatory style program. So for example, at several of these other schools, for example, like Yale or University of Arizona, those would have a music school within a larger university. You can also have a music department within a larger university. So that's a way you could earn what's called a Bachelor of Music. The other thing that you could earn is called a Bachelor of Arts. And this tends to be a little bit more broad. You tend to be specializing more in music. So when someone might have a major that is actually music, i.e. I'm graduating with a degree in music, a Bachelor of Arts in Music, that would probably mean that you are doing a good amount of performing. You might play a couple of different instruments. You might be in a variety of ensembles. You might be really passionate about, say, composition, or about violin, or whatever that might be, but you're kind of learning a very broad strokes focus on music. When you come to a conservatory like NEC, and just to name drop a couple of other schools that you may have heard about. So if you've heard of like Juilliard, or if you've heard of like Curtis or Colburn, or any of those independent conservatories, as well as for example, like Northwestern Bienen School of Music within a larger university. These Bachelor of Music programs, your major itself will be violin performance, or saxophone performance, or piano performance, or composition. And so your actual degree, a piece of paper at the end of the 4 years, will say a Bachelor of Music in violin performance. So what that means is you are still getting a very broad education of what it means to be a 21st century musician. I tend to say personally, it's like 35% your actual talent on your thing, and like 65% hustle. So you have to learn both. But that said, the actual major, and so therefore like the bulk of stuff that you're doing, really has to do with that specific thing. So if it is composition, if it is music theory, and music theory can often be part of a composition major, or as I mentioned, like violin or opera or whatever it is, that's really the difference. So I guess to kind of conclude, when you're thinking like, well, how do I decide? I think it really depends that if you know that you are already at a really advanced level and very passionate about one particular thing in music, then you might want to pursue a major in that thing. For example, as I mentioned, like cello performance. If you're more like, I really want to study lots of different things in music, then you might want to consider a Bachelor of Arts program in music broadly.
That was really great and thorough. Thank you so much, Zach. The next question I'm going to throw over to you, Max. So the University of Arizona has the College of Fine Arts, which includes 4 schools, one of them being dance. Can you tell us about the various ways that students can get involved with dance, either as a major, minor, or even just for fun?
Absolutely. Well, thank you everybody for being here. Again, I'm with the University of Arizona. The College of Fine Arts at our university has the 4 schools. Dance is one of those, but we also offer art, theater, film, and television, as well as music. So specifically about the dance program, There are so many different ways that you can get involved, either as a dance major or as somebody who would like to take classes just to take classes. For example, if you're a major within dance at the University of Arizona, we do over 40 performances a year, and our students do get to perform all 4 years. It is a triple track program in ballet, jazz, and modern dance. We do have a sprung floor, and we have one of the leading male training programs in the nation for dance. So specifically, what happens is our students will choose dance as their major, and over 50% of our undergraduates will either double major, double minor within or outside of the arts. So there's a lot of different opportunities for you. Know that when you do come to the University of Arizona, you are getting a college degree. And as Zach alluded to, with the different types of degrees, BFA, Bachelor of Fine Arts, or a Bachelor of Arts. They're just different degree programs in the context of the University of Arizona. With our BFA programs, you see a lot more competitiveness versus something like a Bachelor of Arts degrees, at least in our context, which tends to be more immersive, broad, and really just kind of throws you into the discipline in general. But speaking on getting involved, and even I like the way this was phrased, even just for fun, that really excited me. Most universities have student involvement, clubs and organizations. For example, at the University of Arizona, there's over 650 different clubs and organizations. If there's not a club available for you for your interest, you can start one. Some of the specific dance clubs include all kinds of interesting things, such as ballroom dancing, different types of ethnic dancing. There's one organization called Black and Blue, which kind of emphasizes hip hop dance. We have the Arizona Dance Club. And so they're just, I mean, I could go on and all day, but then I've been, be monopolizing the entire presentation, and I don't want to do that. Know that the University of Arizona is a really fun place to come, and you're going to find your niche. And someone like me who is in the admissions office, I know a lot about, I know lots of things about the college in general. If you want to reach out to me and have specific conversations about this, more than happy to get in touch with you. I know that's kind of short and sweet and to the point, but yeah, that's really where I'd like to start with that. So thank you.
Thank you, Max. Short, sweet, and to the point. That's how we like it. So the next question that I have is for you, Jeremiah. So along with other forms of art, students can also pursue theater and performance studies. So aside from just performing on stage, what are other ways that students learn and engage in all things theater?
Sure. So, at a school like Yale, where you're going to, theater studies is one of 80 different majors that you can choose from. And you actually do not have to audition to take the major. There's an introductory course that all students have to take. And then a set of courses that students can take as they move through the program, and they have the academic program. And usually a theater studies major at Yale is about a third of the courses that you're going to take during your time as an undergraduate. And there are sort of concentrations within the major. There is the Shen, I'm going to drop a couple links in the chat for all attendees. This is sort of the theater studies major at Yale. There's the Shen curriculum for musical theater, and then there's also a dance studies program. And one of the other panelists sort of touched a little bit on the dance studies program at their institution. So there are specific concentrations within the theater studies major. Some of them, you can take classes in playwriting, you can take classes in theater history, you can take classes that are focused in acting. Some classes will be co-taught at the Yale Drama School with graduate and professional schools, and there will be shared faculty. But there are also specific undergraduate faculty members in the theater and performance studies majors and cross-listed in theater and performance study and history and American studies, depending on the specific history aspect. The one reason you might want to choose to come to a place like Yale is because there is so much theater going on and so much drama going on at all of the graduate and professional schools. Similar to what my colleague at the University of Arizona just described, there's so much going on campus in so many of these areas because of the focus on the arts in the university as a whole. But as the undergraduate major, you don't necessarily have to audition into it, and then you're also taking great courses in engineering or English that will then also make you a better playwright or a better person who's going to work in theater and the arts over the course of your professional career. So there is a tremendous amount of theater going on. Theater and performance studies folks will do some sort of senior capstone. There are often a variety of senior productions where seniors will be serving in different roles. Maybe one will be writing the play, several will be acting in the play, and will sort of encompass the various senior capstones of the different majors. And there are typically anywhere between sort of 25 and 30 theater studies majors at Yale in any given year. So not a typical drama school, but a very active and lively space inside a larger liberal arts college.
Thanks, Jeremiah. The next question that I have is for you, Amelia. Can you share with us some examples of careers that your students have who have majored in the arts have pursued after graduation?
Yeah, totally. I think I'm going to take a similar approach to Zach and kind of like zoom out for just like a brief thing. So generally, I think it's really easy whenever you're thinking about a career in the arts to, zoom into, okay, well, I'm going to be a starving artist who's like eating their paints, or I'm going to be like, have like a gallery artist, like blue chip gallery in Chelsea. Like that's not the only options that we want people to consider with a career in the arts. It's super, super important to think beyond that. We've kind of taken this approach to think about it as like looking at your college education in the arts as like art plus. So like, what is something you can add plus? So like art plus healthcare, or art plus social justice, or art plus entrepreneurship. That like it really opens you up to a lot of other industries that you might not have immediately considered as like where art lives. But like if you think about it, like everything in the entire world is like an artist or designer has had a hand in it. Like the computers we're zooming on right now, like buildings we're in, artists and designers have like touched some part of it at some point. So some examples, just some like, cool little ones. Winston Fraser is a MICA alum that I always love to bring up. He started a company called Dene Prosthetics a couple years ago that does these beautiful like 3D printed prosthetic covers for amputees. It really allows them to like customize and like celebrate this new normal in their lives. Another big one, Abby Jacobson from the TV show Broad City, is another one that people get very excited about. She studied illustration at MICA, but ended up taking a lot of classes in performance. And actually, there was a stand-up comedy class that we're still offering that she took while she was here that ended up taking her career into writing for Comedy Central, or not Comedy Central. I don't remember what the program that's on, but it took her into comedy writing. Another really great one, like Morel Doucet, is a really amazing exhibiting artist who is a museum educator at the Perez Museum in Miami. So thinking a little more broadly of like what kind of careers you might offer can be a really exciting thing. It doesn't have to just be like, I paint and I put my painting up on the wall. Like there's a lot more opportunities in a creative career. I'm going to go ahead and drop a link also. It's Creatives at Work. It's just some cool examples of creative careers and like directions that our alumni have taken in the past.
I really love that. Thank you. I think, oftentimes, like you said, when students talk to parents, they might not know what their student is going to do and try to push them in a certain way. So you all are definitely
that conversation with parents far too often. It's like, I promise you, they're not just going to be eating their oil paints for dinner every night. There's like real careers in here. I promise.
I love that. Thank you, Amelia. The next question I'm going to actually address to you, Jeremiah, and it's about students wanting to double major in the arts and another major. So we got quite a few questions actually asking, can I do this major and this major and minor combo? So there were some examples about majoring in art and merchandising, or performing arts and business, and even biology and music. So if you can just give us a little bit of insight about double majoring or majoring and minoring in the arts.
Yeah, and I'll, like my other panelists, I'll zoom out a little bit. Look, I think Amelia just gave a great answer, and the link that she dropped, I think, is really great. So if that alone doesn't convince parents, you can always say, "Don't worry, mom and dad, I'll go to college and I'll double major in art and business and figure that out." But I would say that yes, you can double major. Double majoring is something that actually happens at least at a place like Yale, far less frequently than I think students imagine it will when they actually get to college, because they feel like they're going to major in X and Y, and then they realize that they're interested in some things that they never even knew existed in high school, and that they want to pursue some of those things, and then they don't get around to finishing that double major, which is completely fine. Double majoring is possible. Some majors at Yale, like music, actually are more open to the idea of double major, and their requirements allow for a lot of double majoring. History and music, English and music, biology and music, Derek, you even mentioned. But other majors, frankly, like theater studies, as I mentioned before, do not really, the number of requirements that they have to actually major in that preclude you from double majoring. But I wouldn't really worry about that too much at this stage in your college search, because the reality is you can get a set of experiences at a college or university and then talk about that even if you don't technically double major in something. So if you end up taking 6 classes in Spanish, you can talk about your experience with the language and literature, and even if you don't have to double major in it, you're going to be taking those skills and those experiences forward with you in your job search or in any interview. So I think instead of sort of thinking too much about the double majoring, you want to definitely be focused on the variety of academic programs that are there, and make sure that there's things that are going to excite you in addition to the arts. And there might be different answers depending on what specific major you are interested in. So I would encourage you, if this specific question is really important to you, to do a little research on the different programs, and then decide how many classes does this specific major ask for, how many total classes you're going to take, and is double majoring possible? Because it does depend program by program and major by major.
Thanks, Jeremiah. So this question, I think there's also one in the Q&A. So I kind of want to throw it out to everyone and let you all kind of weigh in on this. And since everyone has been zooming out, I would also like to zoom out now and ask, like, what is a portfolio? What is an arts portfolio? What does that even entail? And then there is a question in the Q&A that just asks, how early should students start collecting their work for their portfolio, as in what grade or which grade? So I'm just going to throw that out and let whoever unmutes answer that first.
I'm happy to start with it. So the first thing I want to say is every single art, like this is probably the one thing you don't want to hear, and I'm sorry to tell you, every art school wants something different. Every school is going to want something different in a portfolio, which is hard because it means you might need to make a few different versions of your portfolio sometimes, but it's also really good for you in certain ways. You can learn a lot about the culture of the school. You can learn a lot about what it is that you prioritize in your art making. Essentially, a portfolio in its most broad terms is going to be a collection of work that you've made. Finished artworks are usually important. So I often will see work that is like a drawing of a character that a student's really, really passionate about, but it's on like a blank background, right? There's like a lot of white space around it. That's not like quite finished. So generally we want to see like finished works. Different schools will require different amounts of works. Some schools will require you to apply to specific programs, meaning that the mediums and the different kinds of works that you are submitting should be specific to that program. Other schools like Micah, you don't choose your major until your sophomore year. So we're really just looking for your strongest work, the work that you feel most proud of. And in terms of, that was the other thing. It should be recent work, ideally. I try to suggest the past 2 years. So either your junior or senior year. It's not a hard and fast rule. You can absolutely have made something your sophomore year that you're super passionate about, that you still think is super strong. But the reason is because we're, as human beings, changing all of the time and learning all the time. So we want the work that you show to reflect your most recent skills, the most recent concepts that you're grappling with, or, issues that you're investigating in your work. So that would be my broad general answer. I don't know, do any of these other schools require portfolios? I wasn't sure.
Yes, some of the University of Arizona programs do require portfolios, auditions, etc. what I would suggest if you're researching and trying to figure that out, as Amelia said, consider the college or university that you're looking at and the context of that school and what specifically they're looking for. Within the context of the University of Arizona, generally it is current work. Our supplemental applications allow you to submit information directly to the application that can be reviewed by the reviewers. So if you encounter a school that that has that opportunity, take a look at the FAQs, research those schools' websites. Specifically for our acting and musical theater, there is a page dedicated on the admissions site for the School of Theater, Film, and Television that talks about all of the audition information and things you would need to know. Current work, put your best foot forward. Again, within the University of Arizona, know that we know that because you're looking at the University of Arizona and our College of Fine Arts, we believe in you. We know that you have the talent and the prowess to compete with top-notch candidates. So ask yourself what that means for you. How are you going to put your best foot forward? How are you going to showcase yourself as an artist, a creator, a dancer, an actor, a singer? How are you going to do that? What is your approach? What is your methodology? Consider talking to your academic advisor within your school about this. Share your plans. Look at different alumni stories at different college websites. A lot of schools have YouTube pages where they highlight alumni success stories. Ask when you're searching and doing campus tours, do you have any student ambassadors on staff that I could speak with? Know that those students were probably once like you and sitting in a chair learning about a school, and that connection with the student just like yourself is a really good way to get up close and personal and learn all about the college search process and things of this nature. Not to ramble, but that's really what I wanted to add. I want to turn it over to somebody else to add to the conversation as well.
Sure. So I actually might go ahead and ask another question right off of that, because we were talking about portfolios and then we talked about auditions. So a question that I have, and I'm going to direct this towards Zach. One of the registrants asked, does a student need a professional studio to submit recordings for auditions? And then what would be an accessible setup for those who might not be able to afford it or have no local options?
Thank you for that question. Perhaps my answer might surprise you, which is please don't waste your money doing that. So I will not claim to speak for, as I mentioned before, all 120, 150 music programs in the United States. But I will speak for the fact that NEC tends to be sort of among the sort of movers and shakers of the conservatories, which is that you don't need it. And people say, but why not? It'll make me sound good. Here's the thing. You are auditioning for a program whose faculty and staff, present company included, are all working classical musicians or jazz musicians or whatever in their field. And we know what good viola playing sounds like, whether that is, in a professional studio that you've hired for, $1,000 for a 3-hour session, or if it is like in your kitchen with a few dirty dishes behind you. Like we know what it sounds like when it's good. And it's not because of necessarily the actual quality of the recording. It's just this idea that like when we are reviewing your recordings, 99% of the time we're asking for video submissions. So we're also seeing that it's you. That also means that when you are an instrumentalist, that we are looking for full range of motion of your instrument and being able to actually see you play. And so there's an awareness of not only the actual music that we're listening to, but we can tell your technique by how you are moving around the instrument. So I would not recommend it. Every year I say that for the last many years, and every year people don't listen to me, and that's okay. You're not going to be penalized for doing it. The one thing I will say is there have been a few occasions when folks have been penalized for using a professional recording studio because sometimes they will not give you video recordings. Now this tended to happen a little bit more before the pandemic, because now I think everybody's so used to doing everything over video. But there have been instances where folks have submitted pre-screening recordings to New England Conservatory that were audio only, and we did deny those folks at the pre-screening round. So I will say the message I will leave you with is however you feel that you play your best, that is the format that you should use. But I will say that college is expensive, college applications are expensive, and I think any little place that you can save that extra $1,000 for those 3 hours of recording, you should save that $1,000.
Thank you,
I
Zach.
just want to pile on that answer and say here, just because the more people who say it, I think the better it is. You just don't need to invest the resources in that. So I agree with everything Zach said.
I will third that. Oh my God. Absolutely. Students taking photos with like professional lighting setups. You can hang a white sheet in front of directional lamps and they will diffuse light just as well as any kind of professional photography equipment. There are so many ways around spending a ton of money on this, and you'll find them. They're there.
Yeah, specifically, our School of Art does National Portfolio Days, and they're part of a coalition. And we're actually hosting a National Portfolio Days in Phoenix at one of the community colleges. I put a link in the description as well. What I was going to say, though, is, and when you read this, it'll confirm exactly what I'm saying. They even ask, please don't spend time and money matting or framing your work. We want you to keep the presentations simple. The work itself is really what is of interest to us, and I would say most colleges and universities across the nation. So, just kind of keep that in mind and let the work, again, speak for itself.
Thanks so much, Max. So the question that goes right along with this is for you, Evelyn. So some folks to get some recommendations for their recorded auditions, but a little bit more about actually what they should do. So they wanted to know, for drama, are there specific type of monologues that you're looking for? And for music, are there any type of pieces or even outfits that they should wear to go along with their recorded auditions?
This is a good question. And I'm also going to echo what Amelia answered about art portfolios. Those being very specific to each school is going to be true for universities and colleges as well. It's going to be specific to the college. It's going to be specific to the university. So be sure to go on those websites, click around. The information is usually there. It says, is there a composer? Is there a time period that they need to hear from? Certain time limits, do you need to play for 7 minutes? Do you have a maximum of 10 minutes? Things like that. The information is always out there. And so I would suggest always first go to the website. And then if you don't know, or if something's really unclear to you, don't be afraid to ask questions. Admissions counselors, fine arts counselors, all of us are here to help you. So if you have a question and you've gotten 80 emails from this one person who just really wants to connect to you, and you have one question you're really afraid to ask, don't be afraid to ask. It's okay if you haven't responded to their emails or their texts. Just reach out and say, I don't know, I'm unclear about audition materials. It's okay to ask. Please ask us. We want you to succeed. We want you to be prepared. We want you to feel good when you go into that audition, because we want you at our colleges and universities. Now, I will also mention Cornell College, unlike many of the institutions that I'm here with, we actually don't have specific auditions for our art, dance, theater, and music programs. Now, we do require an audition for our BFA in musical theater program, but we do not require an entrance audition in order to be in the art or theater or music program. So keep that in mind. You may not necessarily need to audition to get into a program. That being said, I did include a link to our Fine Arts Awards, which do require an audition. So that's in the chat if you're interested. So keep that in mind when you're auditioning. So the other thing I wanted to talk about in regards to recordings, that was a little bit of a diatribe, but I just want to make students feel good about asking questions. So again, the requirements are going to be a little bit different, but some basic, in regards to monologues and music and things, I would say when it comes to recordings, we ask for very little specific requirements at Cornell. So we ask for contrast. And like I say, it's going to be different everywhere, but show all of your skills, show, if you're going to do 2 monologues, show contrasting monologues, and always do something that you're good at. Perform something that you're really proud of. If you aren't sure of a piece, if you aren't sure of a monologue, maybe don't present that. it's put your best foot forward. So I definitely would recommend that. I made a couple of notes and I want to make sure that I get to all of them. And so then the other thing I would just say is, and I wanted to mention this, if you are making a recording of a monologue or if you're making a musical recording, be sure to check all the requirements for it as well. So is it a video recording? Like Zach said, they've gotten some audio recordings, but they required video recordings. Be sure to read the information. And then when you're done, I know it's painful, but be sure to go back and watch that recording too. Make sure that it actually recorded. Make sure that the audio recorded before you hit send. I know it's hard for people to watch those, but really just do it. It'll behoove you in the end. And then make sure that it's in the right format when you submit it. We just want you to be able to, put your best foot forward. So that was a little bit rambling, I think, but I wanted to kind of bigger picture that for students to feel more confident in the audition process. I encourage my fellow colleagues to chip in with more.
I think that was brilliant. Not rambling at all. Absolutely wonderful information.
Thank you all. So this actually kind of goes really well into a question that's in the Q&A, but that was also submitted a couple of times beforehand. So one person would like to know about the timeline of the application to the college or university and the portfolio audition process. And I'm going to also tie that into a question that I have for Jeremiah about if a student's not planning to major in the arts, should they still submit a portfolio if they'd like? And are there earlier deadlines for those?
Thanks, Derek. So the short answer is no. You don't have to submit a portfolio. I think similar to Cornell College, at Yale, we view portfolio submissions or music submissions, all that as supplemental. And not a requirement. And as I mentioned when I was talking about theater studies at Yale, you don't have to submit a theater tape that gets reviewed by our theater faculty to then come to Yale and decide that you want to major in that. In fact, there might be some majors at Yale every single year who have no experience in high school with drama or theater, and that's how we like it. We do that by design. Music and art probably a little bit less so because of sort of the training required to get up to a level of that. But even then, there are so many musicians and artists at Yale that don't end up majoring in music or art. That's sort of the beauty of the liberal arts college model with these strong arts programs. I was a trumpet player as an undergraduate at Yale, and there were 65 members of the orchestra, and only 9 of us were music majors. I was a history major. I didn't go out and play trumpet, and sadly, I haven't played too much trumpet since I graduated from university, but there were lots of different people and experiences and in this orchestra with lots of different majors. So you do not have earlier deadlines at Yale. The material should be submitted along with the rest of your application materials, and it's actually viewed as supplementary. And you don't have to submit. I'll use music as an example and trumpet in my own application experience, although I applied decades ago, so it's not really particularly relevant at this point. But essentially, you don't have to submit a supplementary music recording with your instrument to convince us that you are an enthusiastic musician and someone who will pursue music in college. There's lots of ways on the Coalition app that you can list extracurricular involvement in music, whether it's awards or various honors or various places that you've played or just ensembles, or even submitting something through the portfolio part of our Coalition application that can just be an example of your enthusiasm for it, that will be a positive in your application review without having to go through the expense and time of creating a supplementary material as submission for us. So Derek, I hope that answers your question, but that's the general piece of it, is that we're not sitting there reading a file saying, wow, this kid sounds like a really interesting musician. Oh, but there's no extra tape. That's a problem. We take what we have, we evaluate what you have, and then we use it to make an admissions decision. If you already have something produced for an audition at one of these other great schools on the panel, for instance, and you're also applying to NEC and to Yale, and you already have your NEC tape, you can certainly submit that as a piece of supplementary material because you've already had it produced for a conservatory. That's more along the lines of what we see in terms of supplemental material submissions. So Derek, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, I definitely think that did. If anybody else wants to add anything about a timeline.
Yeah, and then I would just to echo what Evelyn and others have said, it is a institution by institution specific thing. So you have to make sure you check that for all the places you're.
I was going to add on to that actually as well, because our portfolios are, you submit them at the same time as you submit, we're a Common App school, so you submit it through the Common App at the same time. But there, and I can't say this for every school, with MICA, there is no difference in likelihood of acceptance or scholarship between your early decision deadline, early action deadline, or regular decision deadline. So when you're thinking about timeline, it's all you. It's when you feel ready to submit. And it's important to take your time. I always tell people, like, rushing to put it in like isn't going to make you any more successful than having like a well-crafted portfolio and like doing portfolio reviews and taking the time to like really put it together. So that would be the only other thing I would add to timelines for MICA in particular, that for us there is no difference in likelihood of acceptance or scholarship between all of them.
And just to add also, just from the university context, being a state institution, some universities do engage in what they call rolling admission, meaning that as an application comes in, it's reviewed and it's not really a word, but decisioned, right? It's looked at, the decision is provided to you. Note that the College of Fine Arts does have a supplemental application process for some of our degree programs, specifically those ones that are quite competitive. And we do have a lot of auto admit majors, meaning you just simply choose that major on your university application, and it's more or less an auto admit if you meet admission criteria. But definitely take a look at your school's websites, understand the differences between early action, early decision, and rolling admission, or in the case of somewhere like MICA, where it's more fluid and ongoing, just kind of understand those differences. And make sure you have a way to note those, either in a day planner or something on your calendar where you can keep track of that. I personally am a geek. I like Excel because I'm a data person. When I was searching for colleges, I recorded things into Excel spreadsheets and made lists for myself. What is the college? What is the deadline? What is the application fee? Is it rolling admission? Is it early action, et cetera, et cetera? And that can really set you up for success, especially those of you who are looking early or who do end up applying to multiple schools and universities. Just find a way to keep it all straight for yourself. And as some of our panelists said, there's no such thing as a silly question. Please reach out to your admissions professionals and ask those questions. We love hearing from you.
Awesome, thank you all. So in regards to timeline and I guess requirements for applications, there are a couple questions that came in the Q&A about SAT and ACT scores and how those are reviewed when it comes to a student majoring in art. So I'm just going to throw that question out and then let one of you all answer it. And I'm sure that it's different by institution. So.
I can go ahead and take this one. Cornell College, I can speak for Cornell. I know that a lot of other schools are going this route now too, but we are test optional. So keep in mind that there are colleges out there who now are test optional. And so, yes, your GPA is important. It is important, and it is going to be important for your, to show academic progress. If you had a GPA that wasn't as great, like we always say here at Cornell, we know that COVID was tough on students. And so if you have had a rough year, and you weren't able to take your ACT or your SAT, it was hard for your GPA, but you show progress this year and maybe next year, depending on if you're a sophomore, junior, or senior. Keep that in mind. That's good. And there are, like I said, there are test optional schools here at Cornell. We really look at the whole picture. We look at everything, what you're involved in. It's important to list all the organizations or clubs, or do you babysit? Do you care for your aunt on the weekends? All these things. Keep that in mind. That can also supplement your application and look really good. But in regards to test scores, yes, if you feel strongly about taking test scores, we encourage you to take them. Here at Cornell, our last test deadline, I think, is the December test deadline. So if you're still hoping to take ACT and SATs, December is the last test that we'll take. And I'm not sure, my colleagues here can speak to their institutions individually, but we also have the option of, if you you take your test score, you get your ACTs and you send your test scores to us, and then you decide to actually apply test optional, we will actually take that score out of your application and we won't even look at it. We give you that option as well. So I encourage I haven't actually been in the admissions world that long, but I've been in fine arts a long time. So I would love to hear from my colleagues about their test score processes and things like that.
At the University of Arizona, standardized test scores are not required for general admission to the university. Merit scholarship eligibility or admission to our more selective programs such as the Honors College. But if a student does choose to submit the official ACT, SAT scores, they can be used to assist with like class placement and orientation, or even to help fulfill some of our core competency requirements.
And I will just add that for us, it is not required, and if you choose to submit it, they will be thrown in the recycling bin. We seriously do not consider them at all as part of your application. And the only time you would even need to show any like AP scores is if you were getting any sort of like math or English credit for some of the liberal arts classes you'll have to take at NEC. The one great irony of a lot of the sort of top music schools is that we do not accept AP Music Theory at all. And the reason for that is really just that we teach it so specifically. But what I tell folks is that when you do come to the conservatory during orientation, you'll take a music theory placement exam. It's not that scary. And almost everybody places into first semester theory. And hopefully, if you've done AP theory, you will be incredible at it so that you will place a little bit ahead. So no SATs, thanks.
Same, straight into the recycling bin for Micah. We don't really need them. The one thing I will say is we do sometimes have students who are like a little nervous about their GPA, are like, oh, I didn't do so great, but maybe you got an amazing SAT score. Like what? You can submit that. That's totally cool. But you will, like, if you request, like, we can take that into consideration when we're evaluating your academic progress. We won't consider it unless you ask us to.
All right, thank you all. The next question that I have is actually for Zach. A student said that it seems like many of the music majors are for classical music folks only. So what advice do you have if they want to pursue music and they're a ninth grade student who plays electric guitar and lives in a small town without many opportunities to participate in performances other than local talent shows for youth?
I have so many thoughts on this because this question is actually like 4 questions broken up. But basically, it's a question about equity and access, and that's what we love. So a few things. First of all, I would contest the statement that a lot of music majors are for classical music. While I have personally made my career in the classical music world, I will tell you that behind the scenes, like, give me all sorts of synth pop, like, that's what I like. So I think that one of the things you'll find that folks in the arts, even though there may be things that we do for our careers, that's not all we enjoy behind the scenes. So I mean, I will call on an institution that is right up the street that I walk by every day on my way to work, which is Berklee College of Music. Berklee College of Music has now, I guess, I don't know if acquired is the right word, but they have officially partnered with the Boston Conservatory to have a classical division. But Berklee is world famous for having pop music, singer-songwriters, jazz, all that stuff. And they are not well known for their classical music program, and that's okay. And so the reality is that you can study a lot of stuff a lot of places. And when I had mentioned just about the idea, the difference between like a Bachelor of Music and a Bachelor of Arts in music, when you see a lot of those BA programs, Bachelor of Arts programs in music, a lot of those will not necessarily have a really strict classical focus. You'll be able to do a lot of different things and touch on a lot of stuff. So I think what I will just kind of say is that there are music programs for everybody. Understand that, you know, not all of the musicians that you know and listen to on an everyday basis have studied music formally, but understand that all of those types of music are studyable officially. Okay, so I will say that. I will then kind of talk about the small town thing. So there's a phenomenon. I will not speak for the other arts disciplines, and I will not even speak for other necessarily music styles that are not classical, but I will say that the classical music field, students who grow up in kind of one of a handful of areas in the country have immense privilege when it comes to access to resources in classical music. And that is where I live in New England, the West Coast, Chicagoland, and Texas. And if you've grown up in one of those areas, you have fabulous access to youth orchestras, festivals, regional stuff, all that. I will share with you a story, which is that there is an amazing oboist who just graduated from NEC who grew up in the absolute middle of nowhere, Colorado. And she just had a good private teacher. She liked playing the oboe. And you know, it was good enough. And I think that that's the thing, is that understand, I do apologize, I forget which one of my peers here had mentioned it, but it's the idea of like, you know, we're not reviewing your application and being like, oh, you haven't won a Grammy yet, sorry. It's not about that. It's really about like, have you attained the level so that we can teach you? All right, so that looks a lot different for a lot of people, depending on where you've grown up. So fret not while you are playing on your guitar frets. That's a funny joke. I think that you really, no matter where you're from, you can find an access point into music. The other thing I will say is just kind of with regards to being in ninth grade. So my recommendation is make sure that you are enjoying high school, okay? Because I think that so often there's this idea of like, right, I've just turned 7 and I'm thinking about college. And it's like, how about we actually enjoy being young a little bit? So of course, get yourself a private teacher if you can. Participate in as much local stuff as you can, but do the best you can and understand that what those resources look like for someone who can participate in New York Youth Symphony and Juilliard pre-college does not necessarily look like what somebody from rural Missouri can do. And that's okay. But try to enjoy high school and win your local talent show. And then you have that forever. Once you win your Grammy, you're like, it started here. So thanks for listening.
Thank you so much, Zach. We are cutting close to time, but I do want to ask one question about scholarships and financial aid, knowing that affordability is a huge tenet of what brings us together as coalition schools. So can you all give us some advice? I think I'll ask Amelia about some advice on how to explore scholarships in the arts.
Yeah, so because we're going to hear from everyone else, I can definitely kind of speak to MICA specifically right now. So whenever you apply to MICA, you're automatically considered for all of our institutional scholarships. That is really great. There's no extra steps, but the majority of that does really come from the strength of your portfolio. So my number one suggestion is, please, for the love of God, email me. Like, let's be in touch. I am absolutely a resource. Like Evelyn had said earlier, like, I want you all to succeed and have the most amazing portfolio. And I do portfolio reviews with students year round. Portfolio reviews are so helpful. And I recommend getting them with every school you're planning to apply to, because you're going to get different answers. You're going to get different bits of advice. So it's going to be really helpful. In terms of federal and state funding, that is all going through your FAFSA. My main suggestion for that is keep an eye on local state deadlines. There are a lot of really amazing grants that are offered on state levels that are really important, that like our financial aid office might not, tell you that, like, oh, the Maryland State Access Grant requires you to submit your transcript by the 15th. But keep an eye on those because they're important, and they can be pretty like substantial scholarships on a state level. outside of institutional and federal, like FAFSA related financial aid, my other big recommendation, actually just as an institution in general, is the College Art Association. They are so amazing. They have a full list of scholarships, resources on their website. So I would absolutely recommend keeping an eye out for those.
And when I just open it up, Zach, do you have anything else to add about that by any chance?
The thing I'll add is just, I think broadly speaking, it can be a bit daunting, I think, to go into the arts. And I think one of the things that we see is on the admissions side, it's wonderful when people want to pursue double majors, dual degrees, things like that. But there's definitely a cohort of folks who anticipate doing that because they feel it will be more financially viable. So we are very aware that this is a very common concern. I will say, working with a significant pool of international students, as we all do, I'm sure, the arts in the United States are not as well funded nationally as they are in many places. And so it can be much, you can have, I guess, much less public support, broad support for going into a field like this. So you need kind of every bit of help that you can get, understanding that all education in the United States it can be quite expensive. And so hopefully when you are doing your research, you understand what might be financially viable for you and your family. And we try the best we can to make that experience as viable as we can. So my only other recommendation is that everybody comes from different walks of life, as I had mentioned in my last response. And so I would mention that now is a great time, October 13th.
Oh no.
Oh no.
October
Okay.
13th is a good date to have your internet freeze. This is about, it's
I'm back.
Here he is, he's back.
I'm back. So sorry. It was one of those things. It just happens. We're here. What I had mentioned, I know you're all waiting on my every word. So basically all I was going to say is that now is a great time, as you are going through the application process and you have not yet received financial aid offers, to be looking into any outside scholarships that you can get your hands on. So of course we have some recommendations, but as I had mentioned, the student who comes from rural Colorado, if they know of things for scholarships that are particularly earmarked for oboists and other double reed players from rural Colorado, you should look into those. If you know of scholarships which are for, so it really can have to do with any portion of your identity. It can be the state that you are from. It can be the city you are from. It can have to do with your cultural background or your heritage. It might have to do with the specific thing that you are trying to go into. So I would recommend that. Look into anything. Could have to do with your church or place of worship might have some certain scholarship or whatever. So have a look at that. If there are any, I don't know if there are any international students that would join us, but that's also the kind of thing that sometimes foreign governments will have bursaries and pools of cash to be able to send you other places. So yeah, do as much research as you can.
I just want to jump in real quick. I saw, I don't want to take any thunder away from our lovely host, Derek, but I saw a really important question, at least stood up to me, from somebody about IEPs and accommodations in colleges and universities. I can speak to that directly because one of my past roles was working with an academic support center that supported students who learn differently. When you talk about IEPs and things of that nature, or any sort of need that you may have based on a learning disability, your colleges and universities will have offices that support you as far as accommodations. A difference between accommodations and academic support would be that accommodations are there to support you within the classroom. Outside external academic support will support you as a college student who's studying. And so what I would do is reach out to your university's disability resource center or offices that facilitate that sort of thing. And know that I can speak from the University of Arizona, know that U of A has one of the most supportive campuses as far as learning disabilities goes. Look at the internationally recognized SALT Center. And if you have any specific questions about anything related to this topic, please email me. I would love to have a one-on-one conversation with you and guide you in the right direction, at least as far as some general knowledge goes, because that can be a really big topic of conversation moving from the K through 12 system and into the higher ed realm. And I just want to help point you in the right direction, as I'm sure a lot of our other colleagues may have some insight into this as well. But that jumped out at me, and I really wanted to just take a moment to address that.
Thank you so much, Max. I appreciate that. So I know we are over time. Just wanted to give each one of give you all, if you all wanted to add one last thing before we wrap up, I'll go ahead and let you do that, and then we'll close out this session.
I'll start and just go back to the cost question.
Right.
I think college can be, the sticker price is not what of each institution is not what students will actually pay. And if you're interested in learning more about sort of what a broad range of costs can be, I put a link in the chat of the Quick Cost Estimator, which Yale's a member school of, which is a great way for you to, if you're looking at a wide range of selective institutions, mostly private in this country, you can go on there and in a matter of 10 minutes, understand what a range of an actual cost could be for you to attend Yale and other great places to pursue a study in the arts. So I recommend that and drop that in, and that's my final 2 cents.
All right, I'm leaving it open if anybody else has their final two cents before we wrap up.
I'll go. You can leave it to me to hop in always. I cannot encourage you enough to be in touch with your admissions counselors. I'm sure everyone else will say the same, but we really are here as a resource, especially when it comes to portfolio reviews. I promise you, we're not going to look at your art and be mean. We're not going to laugh at you. That's not what we're here for. We really are here to show you what the stuff you're doing is strongest, how to frame your work and your creative practice in the way that's going to serve you best. I dropped a resource earlier, meet your admissions counselor at MICA. We're divided up by region. So we have a few different admissions counselors that work with students from different parts of the state. You're welcome to reach out to me if you want. I have a really short email because my last name is really short. It's easy to remember. I'll pop it in the chat. But if you guys want to contact me, I'm happy to put you in touch with your personal admissions counselor. Just be in touch. It's always a great idea to be in touch with your admissions counselor.
I will jump in and just actually respond to an anonymous question that was put into the chat, the final question down there, which is, what if I have no idea what I want to do? Which I think is, I think it, I will say, coming from an institution where, you have people apply who are 17 years old and who have been playing violin for 19 years, things like that. It's like people have been playing like their whole lives. And I will say that the experience that a very intense professional training art school offers will not be for everybody. And so I will say that if you fall into that group, that is totally fine. Everybody comes to it their own way. I guarantee you that any one of your idols or favorite musicians or artists has had this question in their brain, like, what am I doing? And so I think in terms of an actual practical step for your college, what I would recommend is for whoever asked this question, you should probably look into a program that's very broad. You should look into a program that is not a Bachelor of Music and maybe not a Bachelor of Fine Arts. You should look into a program that is like a broad kind of liberal arts, Bachelor of Arts situation that you can sample a bunch of stuff, because that way you are getting a higher level of training than you might be used to, but you're also not kind of committed to be playing cello for 9 hours a day for the next 4 years. So go broad and you can find something for you.
I'd love to piggyback on that, what Zach said. I just wanted to, I guess my final recommendation for students who aren't really sure what they want to do, or they've been playing cello for 19 of their 17 years, but they don't want to play cello anymore, and that's okay, is to, when you are considering colleges, take the opportunity to talk to current students. And I always say this, talk to current students. An admissions team is happy to connect you with a current student. And we want you to be able to see yourself in students on campuses. So I'll put information about visiting Cornell. We, of course, are not a conservatory institution and might be a better fit for those students who are like, I want a great liberal arts education, but I don't know what I want to do quite yet. So it's okay. You don't need to know that right now. It's okay. So use all the admissions resources that you can for any college or university. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to say, I want to meet a faculty member. I want to meet a current student. It's really helpful to be able to know whether or not that's a right fit for you. So.
All right. Well, thank you all so much. This has been an incredible session. Jeremiah, Amelia, Max, Zach, Evelyn, just thank you all for all of the time that you all spent with us, sharing your answers and giving your tips and your advice to everyone on the call. And thank you to all the students, parents, caretakers, counselors, whoever was on this session and asking these wonderful questions. And with that, we are going to wrap up and call it a night. All right. Thanks, everyone. See ya.